I still remember my father's proud smile the day I graduated from business school at the top of my class. Standing there in my cap and gown, I felt a lump in my throat as he pulled me into a tight hug. "You're going to do amazing things, Emma," he whispered. "Just like I always knew you would." That was 3 years ago. I was 22 then, fresh out of college and ready to take on the world. Dad, the visionary behind Harrison Technologies, had built his company from scratch, transforming it from a small consultancy into a multi-million-dollar powerhouse. Now he wanted me to carry the torch. "She's too young, Richard." I overheard Mom arguing with Dad late one evening. "The board will never accept her." "What about James? He's been with the company for years." James, my older brother by 5 years and the perpetual golden child in Mom's eyes. He'd been working at Harrison Technologies since high school, climbing the ranks to regional manager. But while he had experience, his focus was more on office politics than actual results. "Emma has the vision, Sarah," Dad had replied, his tone resolute. "The drive. James is capable, but Emma, she thinks like I do. She understands the big picture." When Dad announced me as CEO in training, the news sent ripples through the company. I could feel the stares and hear the whispers. Daddy's little princess was a favorite among them, but I was determined to prove them wrong. For the next year, I threw myself into the job. 14-hour days became my norm as I learned every corner of the business, from infrastructure to client negotiations. Dad was always there, teaching and guiding me. Together, we landed 3 major contracts that had been slipping away, and even my harshest critics on the board began to acknowledge my leadership. Things at home, however, were a different story. Mom barely acknowledged me, leaving the room whenever I walked in. James's hostility simmered beneath the surface, spilling out in passive-aggressive jabs during family dinners. "Must be nice," he'd say, swirling his wine. "Having everything handed to you on a silver platter." I ignored him, focusing on making Dad proud. And for a while, it seemed like everything was falling into place. Then came that Monday morning. I was in a meeting with the development team when my assistant burst in, her face pale. "Emma, it's your father." Dad had suffered a massive stroke while playing golf. By the time I reached the hospital, he was gone. Just like that, the man who had been my rock, my mentor, and my fiercest supporter was taken from me. At the funeral, I stood between Mom and James, numb and broken, as a sea of condolences washed over us. But something wasn't right. Mom's grief seemed almost performative, her composure unshaken. James, on the other hand, kept checking his phone as though he had somewhere else to be. I didn't realize it then, but this was only the beginning. The storm brewing beneath the surface was about to erupt, and it would expose exactly who my family truly was. I wasn't ready for what happened at the board meeting 3 days after Dad's funeral. James strolled in wearing Dad's lucky tie, the blue silk one he always wore for big meetings. Seeing it around James's neck made my stomach twist. As the eldest child and the most experienced member of Harrison Technologies, James began, standing at the head of the table. "Dad's seat. I believe it's in the company's best interest that I assume the role of CEO." The room buzzed with murmurs. I froze, blindsided, as James pressed on. "My sister, while intelligent, lacks the necessary experience. Our father's decision, though well-meaning, was clearly emotional rather than practical." Before I could even process his words, Mom stood up. I hadn't even realized she was in the room. She never attended board meetings. As Richard's widow and a major shareholder, she said, her voice steady and deliberate, "I fully support James' proposition." It hit me then. They planned this, probably before Dad's body was even cold. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut. Actually, I managed to say, finding my voice, according to company bylaws, any change in leadership requires a majority board vote. James's confident smile wavered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Of course, but given the circumstances." "Given what circumstances?" I interrupted, standing. "That our father is gone? Or that you've been waiting for this moment?" The next few weeks were chaos. James went on the offensive, launching a smear campaign against me. Every minor mistake I'd made over the past year was dragged into the spotlight. Resolved client complaints mysteriously reappeared, and anonymous emails circulated about my lack of qualifications. But the worst betrayal came from Mom. Suddenly, she was at the office every day, a presence she never maintained when Dad was alive. She cornered board members after meetings, whispering in hushed tones. I caught snippets like Emma's too young, Richard wasn't thinking clearly, and James has always been the responsible one. Then came the Sunday dinners. Mom started hosting key board members at our house, turning them into casual strategy sessions for James. His wife, Linda, would cook lavish meals while James regaled everyone with stories of his time at the company. I'd been invited but strategically placed at the far end of the table, away from the real conversations. One evening, I overheard Mom talking to Linda in the kitchen. "It's really for Emma's own good," she said. "She's not built for this kind of pressure. Look how stressed she's been." Linda chimed in with a smug tone. "James says she's been making impulsive decisions. Something about a risky investment in cybersecurity." That risky investment was a cutting-edge platform Dad had championed. It was the future of our company, a project I'd poured my heart into. James, of course, had called it a waste of money from the start. The breaking point came when I discovered someone had been accessing my work email. Not just reading it, but sending messages to clients expressing concerns about ongoing projects. It traced the activity back to James' office. When I confronted him, his facade cracked. "You really think Dad picked you because you were qualified?" he sneered. He felt guilty. Guilty for spending more time at work than at home when we were kids. Naming you CEO was his way of making it up to you. "That's not true," I said, but my voice faltered. The doubt clawed at me. James leaned in, his smile venomous. "Face it, Emma. You're in over your head. Do the smart thing, step down. Maybe I'll even make sure you get a nice severance package." I left his office in a daze, wandering aimlessly until I found myself in Dad's old office. Everything was just as he'd left it. The family photos on his desk, the leather chair he loved, the wall of awards and plaques marking his achievements. As I stood there, surrounded by his legacy, the weight of everything settled on me. They wanted a fight, fine. They were going to get one. That night, I stayed in Dad's office, the silence broken only by the hum of the computer and the rustle of papers. I combed through everything: contracts, emails, reports. If they thought they could outmaneuver me, they were wrong. Hours in, I found it. A folder buried deep in Dad's personal drive labeled Project Phoenix. Inside was more than I could have hoped for, a meticulous roadmap for the company's future, centered around the cybersecurity platform I'd been advocating. But that wasn't all. At the bottom of the folder was a letter. "If you're reading this, Emma," Dad had written, "then something has happened to me before the transition was complete. I know your mother and James. They'll try to take control, but I've made arrangements to ensure you have everything you need to protect what we built together." The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting. James and Mom arrived first, looking triumphant. Their smug expressions told me they expected my resignation. "Before we begin," I said, connecting my laptop to the projector, "I'd like to share some findings." For the next hour, I laid it all out. I exposed James' unauthorized access to my email, the resurfaced client complaints, and the most damning of all, the financial records showing he'd been diverting company resources to start a competing firm. "That's absurd," James blustered, his face pale. "Is it?" I clicked to his emails with investors, "because these say otherwise. You've been planning this for months, even before Dad passed away." The boardroom fell silent, the weight of the evidence crushing. But I wasn't done. "And Mom," I said, turning to her, "did you know about the offshore accounts?" Her confident facade cracked. "What offshore accounts?" "The ones James opened using your social security number to funnel company money," I replied, holding up the documents. "You didn't wonder where all that extra income was coming from." Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. "Dad knew," I continued. "He kept it quiet to protect the company's reputation. But he also made sure I'd have the tools to handle it if this day came." I revealed the final piece of the puzzle: Dad's amendment to the company bylaws, notarized weeks before his death. It granted me controlling interest in the company regardless of board votes. "So," I said, leaning forward, "here's how this ends. James, you'll resign immediately. No severance, no benefits. The money you stole will be recovered through your shares. Mom, you can keep your shares, but you'll lose all voting rights and have no say in company operations." "You can't do this," Mom whispered, her voice breaking. "We're family." "Family?" I laughed bitterly. "Family doesn't sabotage each other. Family doesn't betray trust. Dad built this company on integrity and innovation. I'm not going to let you destroy that. Security escorted James out of the building. Mom left in tears, muttering about ungrateful children. A few board members resigned in protest. Good riddance. 6 months later, we launched the cybersecurity platform. It was a massive success, and the stock price soared. Clients who'd left under James's schemes returned, impressed by the company's new direction. I kept Dad's office as it was, a tribute to his legacy, but I worked from the smaller office next door. His blue tie, the one James wore at that first meeting, hangs on my wall now. James left it behind the day he was escorted out. Sometimes I catch myself looking at it, thinking about everything we've been through. Dad once told me, success isn't about having power, it's about deserving it. I finally understand what he meant. As for Mom and James, they moved to Florida. James's company collapsed within months. Mom still sends Christmas cards, full of guilt and veiled accusations. I don't read them. Next week is the company holiday party, and for the first time, we're celebrating record profits. The room will be filled with people who shared Dad's values, people who stood by me when it mattered most. Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choosing people who believe in you, who fight for the same vision. Looking at my team, I know I found my family.